And hello, everyone, and welcome back to Cyrus Webb Presents here on Amazon Live. I'm your host, Cyrus Webb. Glad you all could join us once again. If you guys are new to us on the Amazon platform, welcome. Make sure you guys do hit that follow button. You'll see it either here in this corner or down below. You also will see some of the books by our next guest. It's hard to believe. I first was connected with author Aaron Philip Clarke in 2021 when he released this book, Under Color of Law, featuring a character you guys have gotten to know, that being Trevor Finnegan. And then he followed that up with this book, Blue Like Me, and he then made his appearance here on Amazon Live with us. Well, now this year, everyone's talking about Aaron and his brand new book that he co-authored with Curtis 50 Cent Jackson. You guys see it here, The Accomplice. We're going to highlight it in the carousel over on the Amazon side. I want to talk to Aaron about this amazing journey he's been on, what it was like for him to write this new book, but also for new readers to be able to discover him along his journey as well. The books that I just mentioned, Under Color of Law, as well as Blue Like Me, are in the carousel here on Amazon. So make sure you guys do pick those up. We are simulcasting our broadcast, so we do welcome those tuning in on Facebook, LinkedIn, YouTube, X, and on Instagram. If you guys have any questions or comments for Aaron, make sure you guys put those in the chat. But Aaron, thanks again for stopping by. I really appreciate it, man.
No, thank you for having me. It's good to be back. Look,
the pleasure's definitely all mine. As I mentioned, 2021 is when I first connected with you. Something about October with you. When Under Color of Law came out, we had you on the radio show for that one. But for Blue Like Me, we had the opportunity to have you right here on Amazon. Talk to us about this ride for you, man. What has it been like for you to see how all of your success has led up to this year?
I mean, it's the trajectory is amazing. I started writing, I was first published at 27. So it's been some time. And, when I look back on that first book, that debut novel, and then till now, I'm just happy that I kept writing. I think writing could be very daunting. It's a lot of ups and downs. And so I'm grateful to be able to have a career and people seek me out for different projects, and I'm able to write my own projects. So I can't complain.
Right, exactly. Norma, hello to you. Good to be able to see you over there on the Instagram side. You guys on YouTube, appreciate you guys being with us as well. You guys will notice there is a link for you guys on Facebook, LinkedIn, and YouTube that'll bring you guys over to Amazon. For those joining us on X, we'll put it in the chat for you guys, as well as those tuning in on Instagram. It'll be in our stories as well. When you wrote, I want to start off with Finn, if you don't mind, Aaron. We're going to get to The Accomplice. But again, that's how I was introduced to you, was through Trevor Finnegan. Did he feel like a special type of character when you first created him and introduced him in Under Color of Law?
Oh, definitely. I mean, Trevor Finnegan really was birthed from my experiences with LAPD. And I wanted to write a police detective, a Black police detective, who really encompassed all the frustrations and anxieties and ups and downs that come along with having a career in law enforcement. Especially when you're trying to do the right thing. And so that really was the idea behind Trevor Finnegan. And he took on a life of his own. I mean, it's very easy when I sit down and say, okay, I'm going to write another Trevor Finnegan novel. It just kind of pours out because I've lived with that character for so long.
And I think there's so many people that will read, and if you guys have not read, again, Under Color of Law, definitely recommend that, as well as Blue Like Me, because what we're able to see is not only is Finn, as we get to know him, trying to do a good job, Aaron, he's someone, though, who is human, right? He's dealing with the very things that all of us do. I mean, he just happens to be, a part of law enforcement. Was that part of the fun, I guess I'll ask, of creating that character, someone who in many ways seems larger than life, but also has the same insecurities and issues that we all have?
Yeah, I mean, for me, I wanted to start with the human being first. The badge is somewhat secondary because at the end of the day, these are people, and they have separate lives, and they got to go home to spouses or girlfriends or just whoever, and children. And in Trevor's case, he has a father who really takes up a lot of his time. And definitely becomes more integrated into both books. But I think that, I didn't want to glamorize. I think it's easy to sometimes glamorize detective work and police work in general. But it's a very hard job. And if you have a conscience, it's even harder. And that's what I wanted to explore with Trevor Finnegan.
Yeah. And that brings up an interesting thing that we did talk about on the radio side, Aaron, because not everyone has a good experience or thought when it comes to law enforcement, regardless of the color, right? And we can look at some of the big stories of this year. And I'm the news director here on the radio side in Mississippi at one of the radio stations, and we have stories that come in of cops of all colors, right? That
Mhm.
end up misusing that authority, and then of course end up being held accountable for that. What was that like for you to? I mean, you also are able to address those sentiments in your books. What has that been like for you to take what are real situations in many respects and bring them into your novels?
Yeah, I mean, I wanted to make sure that the novels felt like they were tapped into the zeitgeist, that they were of the day, of the time.
Mhm.
And I couldn't envision writing a police story without tackling the issues that police face and looking at it on a macro level, more societal issues. And so that was very important to do. It just so happened when I was writing Under Color of Law that unfortunately George Floyd was murdered, and that really took the novel. It was headed in one direction, and I think when that happened, I really felt like I needed to go in another direction. And I think that I knew that that novel, if I treated it as if this was the last book that I was going to get an opportunity to publish, I wanted to make sure I was telling the
Mhm.
truth. And that was my approach to it. I really looked at it as if this is my one shot to tell a police story, I want to make sure that it's accurate. I have, you know, people in my family who are in law enforcement. I was in law enforcement for a time. And so, really, Trevor Finnegan is amalgamation of many people, and mostly African American police officers. And the experience is completely different when you have to go into a community that looks like you and you're wearing that badge. And at the same time, you have to exist within these police departments that for a long time didn't want us there. And so that's what I needed to encompass in Trevor Finnegan, and even with his father.
Yeah.
So there's generational trauma that has taken place because of the line of work that they've chosen.
Yeah. You just said something, Aaron. Honestly, I didn't know we had not talked about before in our previous interviews. So I want to stay with that if you don't mind, because we're talking about the very book that introduced you to me and to so many others. So you're saying when you were writing this book, you looked at it as if this was going to be it. You wanted to make sure that you basically left it all on the page with this book.
Oh, definitely. Yeah,
Wow.
I knew it would be a divisive book. I knew
That's,
some people would understand it and some people would run away from it.
that's,
But I knew that it was important because I hadn't come across Black detectives and
mhm,
stories that really were tackling these issues in a way that was from, behind the curtain. So I had seen it, for myself. And so it
right.
was important for me to put that on the page. And the response has always been overwhelmingly positive
Right.
from police officers. I've
Yeah.
never had a police officer say, "Oh, that was like out of bounds," or "I didn't like this, I didn't like that." Most people who have been in law enforcement or have a relationship to it, reporters, people who interact with police officers,
Mhm.
have all said, "Well, you nailed it." I don't demonize anyone in the book. I simply
Right.
tell the story, and it's really up to the reader to decide, what is right and what is wrong. But I'm presenting the world as I see it and as I experienced it within the department.
Yeah. So when you saw, so I love that you said, those in law enforcement appreciated the book. Of course, readers like myself appreciated it. And of course, the response, I think really showed that as well. Was that I don't want to say a pleasant surprise, but was that satisfying for you? That something that was so important for you to do was received by readers the way that it was.
Definitely. You know, I think it's a hard book to describe in the sense that it's a mystery,
Hmm.
it's a procedural, there's thriller elements there. And I think sometimes, especially in publishing, we want to put something in a particular category.
Yes.
And when we do that, I think it really can impact readership. And so for this book, it's hard to position. So anytime readers would find it, or I would get a email or someone say they enjoyed it, it meant a great deal, because it means that it might not have necessarily been something you typically would read, or maybe you were seeking out a thriller, or maybe you did just want a straightforward police procedural without the commentary, or without, as we say, the color, right? In terms of law enforcement, in terms of what's going on in society. But those people still gave it an opportunity and ultimately enjoyed it. And that speaks volumes, especially if it's someone who says, I normally don't read police procedurals, or I normally don't read anything with police, being integral to the story, because really it's about human beings. And that's really what comes first. And I hope that that's what people see when they read a Trevor Finnegan book.
Love that. And again, if you have not gotten your copy of Under Color of Law, you can be able to get it here on Amazon, the Kindle edition. You guys can grab for only $4.99, or you can, of course, be able to get the paperback as well. And again, it's the same thing with the Blue Like Means. You guys see here. I'm going to highlight for you guys on Amazon in the carousel there. You can get the Kindle edition there for only $3.99. And then, of course, get the paperback as well. So now let's turn our attention to the book that people are excited about this year. And I have to say, and I'm not just saying this because I'm speaking to you, when I was first pitched this book and told about this book happening, I was excited about it, not because of 50 Cent, nothing against 50 Cent, because 50 cents, 50 cents. But because I knew you and I'd interviewed you before. So I was so excited about this opportunity for you, which you were able to keep pretty quiet. I mean, so that's for another conversation. But what has it been like for you to see, Aaron, the response to The Accomplice?
I mean, it's been great, and I'll start with 50. So, just the fact that 50 has been so vocal about our collaboration. I mean, that's something you typically, I would say, don't always find. A lot of my friends collaborate with, celebrities or the authors and things like that. And it's not always very transparent. I'll put it to you like that. And so the fact that, 50 has been so transparent and really celebratory of the collaboration that we did. I'm very proud of the book. I'm proud of the collaboration. I think we put something very dynamic together. And it fits. I mean, it fits within the thriller world. And I think that those who love thrillers will gravitate to the book, respect the book for what it is, even though, 50's name is on the cover. At the end of the day, it's a solid thriller. And I hope that, people give it that opportunity, because, and I'm not saying this just because I wrote it or came up with the story together, but I'm saying that, at the end of the day, I put this book right up there with any of the great heist novels, solid heist novel, crime thriller. And there's elements there too of a modern Western. And that was a big part of it, because, there's not a whole lot of modern Westerns out there that feature Black women, especially not Black women who identify as queer. So that was a very big part of this story.
So Nia, the main character, is really fascinating, but the person who was seen as the villain, Desmond, is equally as fascinating. I said to Aaron before we went live here, I almost feel like in many respects they are different sides of the same coin, in that they both find themselves fighting for something what they believe in. They both have their weaknesses. We're able to see in the book, and I'm not going to go into that because you guys have to read the book to see that. But they also are very determined in trying to go against the odds. So I want to talk about Desmond, because I found the way that you all presented him, Aaron, as someone who not only was relatable, talking about what we talked about with Finn, but also you humanized him in a way that made him what his actions were, even though it may be looked at broadly as being quote unquote bad. You were able to humanize him in a way that it was more understandable. Was that important for you with the story, or was it something that evolved as the character evolved?
So my approach to this was, I didn't want to have any villains in it. I mean, in terms of the main characters, there's villains in it, but I wanted to make sure that even the most villainous character, there was a little bit of glimpse of how they got that way.
Right.
And that was really important. And so as far as Desmond is concerned, while he may be positioned as the antagonist, who later becomes a protagonist along with Nia. But I wanted to make sure that people understood where Desmond was coming from and understood his motivations. And it was very clear why he was doing what he was doing. It's not like he just woke up one day and said, I want to become this type of thief.
Yeah.
It was at a cost, and he had to give something up in order to have some sort of semblance of a normal life. And that's what he was chasing. And that was his need all along. And so, that was my idea behind it. And, I think that Desmond is so, he was so much fun to write, and he was so interesting that I think, I tell people he kind of just wrote himself, because once I kind of got going, Desmond just kind of did his own thing. And once I understood his psychology as a character, he really took off.
Yeah. And you're right. Of course, there are other villainous characters in the book as well that we're able to see. But I think, too, the other thing that really struck me as the book kind of unfolded. Hello, Todd. Good to see you over there on Facebook from Arkansas. Glad you could join us. What I really appreciated about the way the book, I even found myself, and I'm curious as to the title, The Accomplice, that there's a literal way, of course, we can look at that, as we're reading the book, Aaron. But also I thought about just in assistance in life for these characters too. They each had, if I'm just talking about Nia and Desmond, each had someone that was, I guess you could call, that accomplice, that person with them. What was it? Talk to us about the title for you and what that was like for you to see how it could be played with the story.
Yeah, I mean, you nailed it. The idea of these accomplices existing within our lives, right? This idea that it doesn't always have to be something necessarily negative. It could be that you arrived at this position because you had somebody and you were relying on somebody who got you there. And there's a flip side to that, though, because, and not to give away, I don't want to do any spoilers,
right?
But there's a lot of accomplices in this book. There's a lot of people who are accomplices, not just based on action, but based on silence, who simply are accomplices because they don't do something, or they don't act in a way that would be in accordance with the law, or ultimately on the other side of that with Desmond, accomplices who go along with, and perhaps Desmond is one himself, I don't know, but who go along with certain actions and do things because they think it's justified, right? And so, that was really what I wanted to explore, is that there's no character that's necessarily 100% good. These characters are all doing the best they can, and they have what I would call true character moments where we see what they're really made of. But at the end of the day, they really are trying to do the best job they can, however that looks like for them. But that's what they're trying to accomplish. They have solid goals and reasons for doing what they do.
Now, I have to ask you as a reader, as we wrap up here, and you may not could even tell me this, is there a chance that Nia and Finn could meet?
Oh, that's a good question. That would be cool. I don't know. I don't know. When we say chance, I don't know the percentage. If I want to break that down.
Okay. Well, look, I asked the question. That's all I can do as an interviewer. Because I thought, this would be really cool if she got a phone call from Finn.
It would be cool. That would be, that would be very cool.
So I do, as a follow-up, you may not can answer this question either. Are you looking forward to exploring Nia more?
Oh, definitely. Yeah. Okay. So I am hard at work on book 2. So the Accomplice Volume 2. And we're going to explore some of the characters that were introduced in the first book, primarily Desmond's daughter. But we're going to start to kind of get deeper into the ramifications of the actions in the first book. Okay. So everything is related to cause and effect. And so in many ways, folks will see how Desmond's actions have now impacted his daughter, and in Nia's actions as well. You know, and it's a different sort of Nia than we see in this book. I mean, she's going to be in her golden years, and you know, I think it'll be interesting to explore her as you know, kind of a older, you know, weathered somewhat, and somewhat bitter from the job and from life and the way things have gone for her. And we'll really start to see the impact of loneliness. So when she gets thrown back into this world, which is not her doing, but when she gets thrown back into it, we're going to see how she has to make those sorts of adjustments, going from basically living this kind of solitary life to now being back into the realm of law enforcement, and having to contend with some of the actions that she took in the first book.
Love it. Well, it gives us something to look forward to. Again, everyone, Aaron Phillip Clark has been our guest. Great conversation with you, Aaron. Of course, the new book is The Accomplice, and it is on sale right now. So you guys can get the hardcover right now for 30% off for only $19.59, or you can be to get the Kindle edition. But again, the hardcover is on sale right now for 30% off, $19.59. While you're on Amazon, please go ahead and pick up the books that we talked about here, of course, featuring Trevor Finnegan as well. I'm going to highlight it again in the carousel for you guys on the Amazon side. That, again, beginning with Under Color of Law. You all can see it there. And then, of course, Blue Like Me, I'm going to highlight for you guys as well. You can be able to get those too. Aaron, really appreciate you taking on time on your busy schedule, man. Congratulations again on all the success. How can our audience stay connected with you?
Oh, sure. And I appreciate it. You can find me at www.aaronphillipclark.com. That's my official website. And then also on social media, which is at Real APC Books.
Okay. All right, Aaron. Definitely looking forward to having you back with the second book, with The Accomplice. And we thank you, our audience, for tuning in to another great segment of Cyrus Webb Presents. Until next time, you all make it a great one. We'll talk to you soon. Take care.